Olivia Carter had spent the last decade meticulously building a life that looked perfect on paper. At 32, she was a senior manager at Whitmore and Company, a firm with an office that boasted floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city's skyline. The corner office, the six-figure salary, the respect of her colleagues, it was everything she had worked for. While her younger sisters, Lauren and Emily, were getting married, having babies, and filling their social media feeds with smiling family photos, Olivia was climbing the corporate ladder, one late night and early morning at a time. She didn't mind. Not really. At least, that's what she told herself. The truth was, there were nights when the silence of her apartment felt deafening, when she scrolled through holiday pictures of her sisters' growing families and felt a pang of something she refused to name. Regret? Loneliness? No, she had no time for that. She was successful, independent. The reliable one. That Tuesday morning, her phone buzzed on her desk just as she was reviewing quarterly reports. Olivia glanced at the screen. Lauren. That was unusual. Her sisters rarely called her during work hours unless something was wrong. Hey, Liv. Lauren's voice was bright, almost too cheerful. Hey, what's up? Olivia asked, still half focused on the numbers in front of her. So, you know Mom's turning 60 in 2 months, right? Of course, Olivia said, flipping a page in her report. Well, Emily and I have been planning something really special. A big family getaway. A full week at Silver Ridge Resort. Skiing, cabins, the whole thing. It's going to be amazing. Olivia sat up a little straighter. A real family vacation? It had been years since she'd been included in something like this. Usually, she was the one who sent expensive gifts, video called in for a quick chat, and then went back to her workload. That sounds great, she said, a small, unexpected smile forming. Yeah, so we need everyone to chip in to make it extra special for Mom. I know it's a little pricey, but you know it's for her, so... Olivia barely hesitated. Of course. How much? Lauren named the number, and Olivia nearly choked on her coffee. It was more than her last vacation, hell, more than the last two combined. I know it's a lot, Lauren added quickly, sensing the pause. But this is a once-in-a-lifetime thing. And we know you'd want to help. Olivia exhaled, already pulling up her banking app. Yeah, sure. I'll send it now. You're the best. Lauren chirped. Oh, and one more thing, you need to take a full week off work. No meetings, no emails. Just family time. Okay, a week off? That was harder to swallow than the money. Olivia hadn't taken that much time away from work in years. But when was the last time she had truly spent quality time with her family? Maybe this was exactly what she needed. Okay, she agreed, surprising even herself. I'll block off my schedule. Perfect. You won't regret it. As the call ended, Olivia sat back in her chair, a strange warmth filling her chest. Maybe for once, she wouldn't be the one left out. Maybe this time, she'd get to be part of the memories instead of just watching from the sidelines. She had no idea what was really coming. The night of the family dinner, Olivia arrived at her parents' house feeling something she hadn't felt in a long time, anticipation. For years, she had been the one on the outside looking in, the reliable older sister who sent money when needed, who watched from a distance as her siblings built families of their own. But this time, things were different. She had been invited in. A full week away, a real family trip. For the first time in years, she felt like she belonged. The house was filled with the familiar chaos of family life. Her father was already telling one of his well-worn jokes, her mother was fussing over the dinner table, and the kids, Emily's toddler Noah, Lauren's baby girl Ava, their cousin Adam's twins, Max and Lily, and Rachel's son, Ben, were running wild through the living room. It was the same warm, noisy atmosphere she had grown up with, and for a moment, she let herself bask in it. Dinner was halfway through when Lauren cleared her throat, pushing her peas around her plate with casual precision. So, she said, glancing at Emily, we finally got everything booked for Mom's birthday trip. The table erupted into excited chatter. Her mother beamed. Her father was already talking about trying out skiing again, and Emily was discussing the best slopes to hit first. Olivia smiled, taking it all in. "Why didn't anyone tell me earlier?" she asked, laughing lightly. "I don't even have a ski suit. There's barely any time to get one now." The table quieted. Too quiet. Her mother cleared her throat, and Olivia's stomach clenched at the tone. It was the same one she used whenever she needed a favor she knew Olivia wouldn't like, but also wouldn't refuse. "Well, sweetheart," her mother began gently, "actually, we were hoping you could do something really important for us." Something cold and heavy settled in Olivia's chest. "What is it?" she asked, her voice wary. Her mother exchanged glances with Lauren and Emily, as if deciding who would be the one to drop the bomb. "We need you to watch the kids while we're there," Emily finally said, her tone casual, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Olivia blinked, certain she had misheard. "What?" "The kids," Lauren repeated, as if she were explaining something simple. "We need someone to watch them so we can actually enjoy the trip. And you're so good with them. 5 kids. All under the age of 7. "You're kidding," Olivia said flatly. But no one was laughing. Her mother reached for her hand, squeezing it in what was supposed to be a reassuring gesture. "Honey, you're so great with them. They love their Aunt Olivia. And let's be honest, you wouldn't really enjoy skiing anyway. It's loud, crowded, and not exactly your thing." Something inside Olivia cracked. "Not my thing," she repeated, her voice dangerously low. "And who decided that?" Emily sighed, setting down her fork like this was an inconvenience rather than a betrayal. "Come on, Liv. You'd be miserable out there. You hate big crowds and you don't even ski. This way, everyone gets what they want. Everyone except her." She looked around the table, searching for some sign that this was a joke, that someone would burst out laughing and tell her they were messing with her. But all she saw were expectant faces. They had already decided. They had planned this entire thing, used her money, her time, and her trust without ever including her in the discussion. The worst part wasn't even the babysitting request. It was the fact that they had assumed, without hesitation, without doubt, that she would say yes. Like she always did. She swallowed, forcing her voice to stay steady. "I want to celebrate too. It's Mom's birthday. I was looking forward to this trip." Lauren waved a dismissive hand. "You'll still be there. Just, in the cabin with the kids." Olivia let out a sharp, humorless laugh. "You're serious?" Her mother's lips pressed into a thin line. "Olivia, you don't have a husband or children. You don't need a break like the rest of us do. We need this." The words hit her harder than she expected. So that was it. Her time, her life, her exhaustion didn't count because she wasn't like them. Because she had chosen a different path. Lauren's voice took on that condescending tone she had perfected over the years. "Liv, it's not a big deal. It's just 1 week. You've always helped us out before. Helped them out. Every late-night babysitting favor, every emergency school pickup, every weekend sacrificed so one of them could have a well-deserved break," flashed through Olivia's mind like a cruel slideshow. Every single time, she had said yes. Even when it meant canceling her own plans, even when she was drowning in work, even when she was exhausted beyond belief. Because she was the reliable one. The one who never said no. Until now. She pushed back her chair, the legs scraping against the hardwood floor with a sharp sound that cut through the silence. "Olivia," her mother started, a note of warning in her voice. But she wasn't listening. She grabbed her purse from the counter and walked straight to the door. Still, no one moved to stop her. As she reached for the handle, she heard her mother's voice, soft but firm. "Don't worry," she said, as if Olivia wasn't standing right there. "She'll be offended at first, but she'll come around. She always does." The words echoed in Olivia's head, each syllable hammering another nail into the coffin of her patience, her tolerance, her years of quiet sacrifice. She stepped outside into the crisp evening air, the cold biting at her skin. It was shocking, in a way, how clear everything suddenly seemed. They didn't see her as a person. She was a resource. A convenience. And that was something she would never let happen again. Olivia drove through the darkened streets in silence, gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles turned white. The anger was there, simmering beneath the surface, but beneath it, something else lurked, something heavier. A deep, aching exhaustion. She had spent her whole life being the dependable one, the responsible one, the one who picked up the pieces when everyone else fell apart. And what had it gotten her? A role she never auditioned for, expectations she never agreed to, and a family that saw her as nothing more than a built-in safety net. By the time she reached her apartment, her chest felt tight, her pulse pounding in her ears. She tossed her keys onto the counter and collapsed onto the couch, staring at the ceiling. The weight of the evening pressed down on her, but for once, she didn't push it away. She let it settle. And then, the memories came. 16 years old. Her mother had been running late from work, and Emily had a big test the next day. Olivia, still in her school uniform, had stood at the stove, stirring a pot of spaghetti while quizzing her sister on history terms. No one had asked her to cook. No one had even thanked her. 18. Her friends were heading to Florida for spring break, a trip they'd been planning for months. Olivia had stayed behind because her parents had a weekend getaway planned, and someone needed to watch Lauren. 21. She was juggling 2 part-time jobs while in college, barely making ends meet, but when Emily needed a dress for prom and their parents were stretched thin, Olivia had handed over her paycheck without hesitation. The memories kept coming, one after another, filling her mind like an overflowing flood, each one carrying the same bitter realization: she had always come second. Always. A sharp laugh escaped her lips, humorless and hollow. How had she not seen it before? Because she never let herself look. She had spent years convincing herself that this was just what family did. That being needed meant being loved. That sacrificing was the price of belonging. But that wasn't love. That was expectation. And tonight had finally shattered the illusion. Her phone buzzed, snapping her out of her thoughts. She didn't have to check the screen to know who it was. They would be calling now, one by one, trying to smooth things over, trying to manipulate her back into place. She let it ring. And ring. And ring. Finally, when the buzzing stopped, a message popped up from her mother. Mom, Olivia, I don't understand why you're so upset. We thought you'd be happy to spend time with the kids. You love them, don't you? And there it was. The guilt. The subtle emotional manipulation disguised as concern. She should have expected it. After all, it had always worked before. Not this time. Another buzz. Lauren. Liv, seriously? You just walked out? That was so dramatic. We weren't trying to hurt you, but you're blowing this way out of proportion. Out of proportion. Of course. Because her feelings didn't matter. Only their plans did. Her grip tightened on the phone as another message rolled in. Emily, I get that you're mad, but this isn't fair. You don't understand what it's like to need a break. You don't have a family to take care of. Something inside her snapped. She had spent her entire life taking care of them. And now, because she didn't have a husband or children of her own, her exhaustion didn't count. Her chest ached, not just from anger, but from the realization that this wasn't just about the ski trip. It was about everything. For years, she had played the role they needed her to play. And the second she stepped out of line, just once, she was the problem. The selfish one. A deep breath. A long exhale. Then, she did something she never thought she would do. She turned off her phone. For the first time in years, she silenced the noise. And in the quiet, something unexpected happened. Relief. Not the kind that came from solving someone else's problem. Not the kind that came from fulfilling an obligation. Real, genuine, bone-deep relief. She stood up, walked to the window, and looked out at the city. The world kept moving. The lights still shone. Life was still happening, and for once, it didn't feel like it was passing her by. A thought settled in her mind, clear, undeniable. She didn't owe them this. She didn't owe them her time, her exhaustion, her sacrifices. She had spent her whole life making space for everyone else. Maybe it was time she made space for herself. And just like that, a decision formed. She wasn't going to the resort. She wasn't spending another week playing the role of the convenient sister, the built-in babysitter, the afterthought. She was going to do something for herself. Something she had never done before. The thought scared her. But for the first time in a long time, it also excited her. She didn't know what came next. But she knew this much: she was done being used. Olivia woke up to the soft morning light filtering through her bedroom window, but for the first time in years, there was no urgency pulling her out of bed. No frantic emails, no last-minute calls, no family obligations waiting on the other end of a ringing phone. Just silence. And peace. She stretched, feeling something foreign settle in her chest: relief. The kind that wasn't tethered to pleasing someone else. The kind that came from making a choice for herself, without guilt, without compromise. She had spent her entire life being the person everyone counted on, the one who filled in the gaps, who made sacrifices without question. But not this time. As she poured herself a cup of coffee, she scrolled through flight options on her laptop. Her family was probably expecting her to sit in her apartment, stewing in guilt until she inevitably called to apologize. They had no idea that, for the first time, she wasn't just refusing to be their unpaid babysitter, she was leaving. Completely. The thought sent a thrill through her veins. She scanned the options until something caught her eye. A beachfront hotel in Florida. A place where the sun was warm, the waves constant, and most importantly, where no one would expect anything from her. She clicked without hesitation, booking a first-class ticket. The old Olivia might have hesitated. She might have second-guessed herself, might have worried about being reckless or selfish. But the old Olivia had spent years bending over backward for people who barely spared a thought for her own happiness. That Olivia was gone. As she packed, she felt an unfamiliar lightness in her chest, as if she were finally free of something she hadn't even realized had been holding her down. She tossed swimsuits, sundresses, and sandals into her suitcase, already imagining the feeling of warm sand beneath her feet, the salty breeze against her skin. Meanwhile, miles away, her family was unraveling. At precisely 10 o'clock that morning, her sisters arrived at her apartment, 5 children in tow, fully expecting Olivia to greet them with a smile and open arms. Instead, they were met with silence. Lauren was the first to knock, expecting to hear the familiar sounds of Olivia bustling inside, maybe rushing to clean up, maybe hurrying to get things in order for the week she had undoubtedly prepared for. But there was nothing. She knocked again, harder this time. "Olivia, come on," she called, pressing her ear to the door. "We don't have time for this." Still nothing. Emily pulled out her phone, frowning as she scrolled through her messages. "She hasn't read anything I sent since last night." Rachel, standing a few steps back with her son Ben, shifted uncomfortably. "Are you sure she knew we were coming?" "Of course she knew," Lauren snapped, jabbing at the doorbell. "She just needs to get over herself." But as the minutes stretched, as call after call went straight to voicemail, the uneasy truth settled over them. Olivia wasn't there. And worse, she wasn't coming. Emily's fingers trembled slightly as she scrolled through Olivia's social media. Then she froze. A photo. Freshly posted. A stunning ocean view. Palm trees swaying lazily in the breeze. A balcony with a half-empty glass of wine on the railing. The caption was simple. "Sometimes, the best thing you can do is disappear." A stunned silence fell over them. "She left," Rachel whispered, eyes still locked on the screen. "She can't just leave," Lauren hissed, grabbing the phone from Emily's hands. "She knew we were counting on her. She knew we had everything planned. What the hell are we supposed to do now?" Emily's grip tightened around her own phone, her jaw clenching. She did this on purpose. Of course she had. For years, they had assumed Olivia would always be there. She was the responsible one, the dependable one, the one who never said no. And for the first time, she had. For the first time, she had walked away. And none of them knew what to do about it. Meanwhile, Olivia was stepping off a plane into the warm Florida air. The moment she felt the heat wrap around her, The tension in her shoulders melted. The scent of salt lingered in the breeze, and the distant roar of waves filled the air like music. It was so far removed from the chaos she had left behind that it felt almost surreal. The hotel was even better than she had imagined, spacious, modern, with sweeping ocean views from her private balcony. She dropped her bags by the door and stepped outside, breathing in the scent of the sea. This was what freedom felt like. No expectations. No responsibilities. Just her, the ocean, and the simple joy of existing for herself. That evening, she walked barefoot along the shoreline, letting the waves lap at her ankles, feeling lighter with every step. She had spent so long waiting for someone to see her, to appreciate her, to include her. But now, she wasn't waiting anymore. She was living. She swam in the pool under the glow of the moon, read an entire novel without a single interruption, and had dinner at a quiet beachside restaurant where no one needed her to cut their food or clean up their mess. She sipped her wine on the balcony, watching the sunset bleed into the ocean, and for the first time in years, she didn't feel guilty for choosing herself. She had been Olivia, the responsible daughter. Olivia, the reliable sister. Olivia, the last-minute babysitter. But this Olivia? She was finally free. If you loved this story, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Your support inspires us to bring you more heartwarming stories almost every day. Thank you for being part of our community. See you in the next one. The moment Olivia turned her phone back on, the screen exploded with notifications. It buzzed violently in her hand, a never-ending stream of missed calls, voicemails, and unread messages. She stared at it, heart pounding, watching as her family's desperation unfolded in real time. The first few messages were confused. Lauren, hey, we're outside your place. Open up. Emily, Olivia? Where are you? Rachel, is everything okay? The kids are getting restless. Then, as the hours passed with no response, panic started to seep in. Lauren, seriously, this isn't funny. We've been waiting for over an hour. Where the hell are you? Emily, you knew we were coming. Pick up your damn phone. And then, realization hit them. Rachel, wait, are you not here? Emily, she wouldn't just leave. Right? Another message. Then another. Then a full storm of frantic calls, one after the next, voicemails piling up, each one dripping with disbelief and frustration. Olivia scrolled further. The messages took a darker turn once they found her social media post. Lauren, you selfish b*******. You just abandoned us? What the hell is wrong with you? Emily, Mom is crying because of you. Are you happy now? Rachel, we trusted you. The kids were counting on you. This is beyond cruel. Olivia's fingers tightened around the phone. The words shouldn't have surprised her, but they did. The sheer entitlement in them. The absolute certainty that she was the one who had wronged them. She read the messages again, slower this time. Not a single one asked if she was okay. Not a single one acknowledged that maybe, just maybe, she had been pushed too far. Instead, it was all about how she had ruined their plans. She set the phone down and took a deep breath, forcing herself to stay calm. But beneath her newfound sense of peace, something dark and sharp twisted inside her. She had known they would be upset. She had expected them to be angry. But this level of sheer rage? It told her everything she needed to know. When Olivia finally stepped through the door of her apartment a week later, she barely had time to set her suitcase down before they arrived. The pounding on the door came first. Loud, demanding, a warning. Before she could react, the door swung open. Her mother stood at the threshold, flanked by Lauren and Emily, their faces red with barely contained fury. For a split second, no one spoke. Then, do you have any idea what you've done? Lauren's voice was sharp enough to cut glass. Olivia exhaled slowly, steadying herself. I imagine you're about to tell me. Emily stepped forward, crossing her arms. You ruined Mom's birthday. Their mother shook her head, voice trembling with emotion. We spent all week talking about how you abandoned us. How could you be so cruel? Cruel. Because for once, she had said no. Because for once, she hadn't sacrificed herself for them. Olivia let out a quiet, bitter laugh. You cannot be serious. Lauren's eyes blazed. Oh, I'm dead serious. You screwed us over, Olivia. We had everything planned. The resort was booked, the schedule was set, and then you. She gestured wildly at Olivia, as if she were some kind of traitor. You just disappeared. You left us scrambling. Do you have any idea what we went through? We had to take care of the kids ourselves. We had to change our plans. Sarah even had to stay behind because we couldn't make it work. Emily scoffed. We needed you, Olivia. And you just walked away like we didn't matter. Something inside Olivia snapped. She took a step forward, her voice eerily calm. You needed me? No. You needed a free babysitter. You needed someone to be your backup plan. You needed someone to sacrifice their time so you wouldn't have to. But you didn't need me. Her mother's expression darkened. That's not fair. No, you know what's not fair? Olivia cut in, her voice rising for the first time. What's not fair is that you planned this entire trip without asking me. What's not fair is that you used MY money to fund a vacation I wasn't even included in. What's not fair is that you didn't even think to ask if I wanted to go. Silence. A tense, suffocating silence. For the first time, she saw it, the guilt. It flickered across her mother's face, a brief flash of recognition before being buried beneath indignation. But Olivia wasn't done. You don't get to stand here and act like I betrayed you when the truth is, you never once considered what I wanted. You just expected me to play my role. To smile, to agree, to do what was convenient for you. And the second I stopped, you turned on me. Her mother's mouth opened, but no words came out. Lauren shook her head, disbelief clouding her features. You've changed. Olivia's lips curled into something that wasn't quite a smile. Yeah, I have. Emily took a sharp breath. So that's it? You're just done with us. Olivia met her gaze, unwavering. I'm done being used. Another silence. This one heavier. More final. Her mother squared her shoulders, steel creeping into her voice. If that's how you feel, then maybe I don't have a daughter named Olivia anymore. Olivia held her ground. The words stung, but they didn't break her. Not like they would have before. She nodded once. If that's what you want, then so be it. And just like that, it was over. The three women stood there for a moment, as if waiting for her to take it back. To beg. To apologize. But Olivia had no apologies left to give. Eventually, her mother turned, walking out without another word. Lauren followed, muttering something under her breath, and then Emily, her expression unreadable. The door shut behind them, and Olivia stood in the silence, breathing. For the first time in her life, she wasn't weighed down by their expectations. She wasn't drowning in guilt. She was free. It had been 6 weeks since that final confrontation in her apartment, 6 weeks of silence from her family. At first, Olivia had expected the guilt to creep in, to find herself reaching for the phone, second-guessing everything she had said. But instead, she felt lighter. For the first time in years, she wasn't carrying the weight of their expectations on her back. She wasn't waiting for the next favor, the next sacrifice they would demand. Her mother hadn't reached out. Neither had her sisters. Instead, they took to social media. Mom, some people only think about themselves, no matter how much you've done for them. Lauren, family should always come first. A picture of her daughter, captioned, so blessed to have the ones who truly matter in my life. Emily, it's sad when selfishness destroys family bonds. They never mentioned her name, but everyone knew who they were talking about. A few months ago, these posts would have devastated her. She would have spent sleepless nights crafting the perfect response in her head, wondering if maybe, just maybe, she really was the problem. But now, she just scrolled past them. She wasn't their villain anymore. She wasn't anything to them. And she was okay with that. Instead of wasting her weekends waiting for last-minute babysitting requests, she joined a book club. The first meeting had felt strange, sitting in a coffee shop on a Saturday morning, knowing no one was about to call and beg her to drop everything. For the first time, her time belonged to her. Last week, she booked a trip to Europe. No checking schedules, no making sure it wouldn't conflict with someone else's needs. She saw a deal and took it. No hesitation. Sometimes, in quiet moments, she thought about her nieces and nephews. She missed them. But not the way they had been used as weapons against her. She hoped, one day, when they were older, they would understand. Maybe they'd see the patterns in their own lives. Maybe they'd choose differently. She still had the emergency key her mother had used to storm into her apartment that last day. She had thought about mailing it back. But every time she held it in her hands, something stopped her. Maybe a part of her still hoped that one day, they would understand. That they would realize family isn't about obligation. That real love doesn't come with conditions. But she wasn't waiting for that day. She wasn't putting her life on hold for their approval or their understanding. For the first time, she was choosing herself. And it felt right. Yesterday, she quietly deleted the family group chat from her phone. No announcement. No final words. Just gone. Some might call it selfish. Her family certainly did. But Olivia had learned something important. There's a difference between being selfish and having self-respect. And sometimes, the healthiest thing you can do is walk away from the people who only see your worth in what you can do for them. Olivia's story is a powerful reminder that self-worth is not measured by how much you sacrifice for others. Too often, people, especially women, are conditioned to equate love with selflessness, believing that being a good daughter, sibling, or friend means always saying yes, always putting others first. But the truth is, love should never come with conditions. This story highlights the importance of setting boundaries and recognizing when a relationship, whether with family, friends, or colleagues, becomes one-sided. Olivia was not selfish for choosing herself. She was not cruel for walking away from those who only valued her when she was useful to them. She simply realized that real love and respect should be mutual, not transactional. In today's world, where burnout and emotional exhaustion are rampant, Olivia's journey teaches us that it's okay to say no. It's okay to step away from relationships that drain you. And most importantly, it's okay to put yourself first. Because at the end of the day, the people who truly love you will respect your happiness, not just what you can do for them.